Now in Up North Live News at 6. How will federal cuts impact Sleeping Bear Dunes and other national parks and lakeshores? We're talking to former employees. The story behind a new push to name a busy road, marking a loss almost 4 decades ago. The update residents got about the PFAS situation in Cadillac and what's next. Plus the repairs and updates being done on the SS Badger before another summer season on Lake Michigan.
This is Up North Live News at 6 on 7 and 4.
The National Park Service oversees 6 sites in Michigan. All are facing the same challenges as other parks across the country. The NPS is under a federal hiring freeze, and about 1,000 employees were laid off 2 weeks ago. Our Allie Baxter spoke to former park employees to understand how this could impact your park visit.
Parks can't do what they're supposed to do for the American people.
For years, Tom Ulrich served as the deputy superintendent at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. He says he's concerned how the park is going to function this summer.
There's millions, hundreds of millions of people visit the national parks every year, and those people are still going to come. They're still going to be vacationers this summer, and they're going to come to a park that is not going to be prepared for them.
Tom was told guidance from Washington to NPS superintendents is changing daily. He explains that back and forth has already compromised conservation operations at Sleeping Bear, like the endangered piping plover project.
We usually have staff coming on in March because the plovers get here in April, and they will this year too, but there will not be staff there because of these moves by the administration. So the plovers are going to be unprotected from dogs, predators, human activity. And I don't see how we can get people on in time to do the work necessary to save the plovers or the other resources that are sort of behind the scenes.
Julia Gehrig was one of those employees working behind the scenes at several parks.
It's the golden standard of natural resource management.
She's a revegetation specialist. Put simply, for every construction project within a park, someone has to make sure the disturbance isn't destroying the resources the park is trying to conserve.
It's either salvaging plants, seed collection, purchasing seeds, seeding roadsides, and then also the erosion control. So anytime you see a construction project with those mats down or hydro-seeding mulch, like that's the type of work that I was doing.
On the morning of Valentine's Day, when Julia was fired, she was working on 26 projects at 20 parks across the country, including Sleeping Bear, Pictured Rocks, and
the reforestation project in California at Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, where their general highway has been impacted by the K&P fire complex. And I was in the process of putting out a contract for 23,000 trees to be planted to limit landslides this spring.
Julia wasn't fired by her supervisor or the Park Service. She got this letter from the U.S. Department of Interior saying she failed to demonstrate fitness or qualifications for continued employment.
We can only be terminated due to performance or misconduct. And the document that somebody from OPM or Department of Interior sent me was fraudulent. I'm okay that people might disagree with my interpretation of the value of the work that I do, but I don't think that we should be up for interpretation of our entire legal system.
Julia says at this point she's exploring different options for employment, but she has appealed her termination because she values her work at the park.
I think that if people who have integrity leave, we're opening the door to people who don't.
In Leelanau County, Allie Baxter.
And I don't want to open that door willingly.
Up North Live News.
Tom also explained that if Sleeping Bear doesn't have the staff it needs this summer, you could see different areas of the park closing, like visitor center, historic buildings in Glen Haven, even toilets at beaches.
It's a question that we asked Congressman John Molinar in a one-on-one interview this week. Take a listen to his response.
Our lakeshore, our Sleeping Bear Dunes are national treasures, and we want to make sure they're protected, but we've got to do it within a budget, and that's where we need to set the right priorities, and to me, that would be a very big priority.
Up North Live is working to get more information about the deaths of 2 people at an Otsego County home. It's a story we exclusively broke on air and online yesterday. State police investigating what they are calling a suspicious incident. Our Daniel Zivian has been on the story since the beginning, has the latest.
We'd just like some answers, just, to put our minds at ease.
State police say a man and a woman were found dead outside a home on Myrner Road, west of Gaylord. A passing driver called 911 early Wednesday, having seen the man's body on the driveway. I spoke with a neighbor who was on the road with her daughter at the time.
As we were approaching the light at Myrner and 32, we heard an ambulance and a couple of, police cruisers and a state trooper. We didn't hear anything in the area at all during the morning or at night, so it was just kind of a shock to see something like that, happening right here in our neighborhood because it's usually so quiet.
2 children were found inside the home and later evaluated at the hospital. While a forensic trailer was on site for hours, troopers say the case is wide open.
It was an ongoing investigation all day, and both deceased subjects have been sent for an autopsy, and the cause of death is not known at this time.
We never saw anybody coming or going from the house, and we didn't even know that they had kids. Just never saw anybody.
Christine and her neighbors had a road blockade on their doorstep for 6 hours. And with no timeline for the autopsy, Christine says she is just plain baffled. What do you want to know from Michigan State Police?
Whether it was something nefarious that went on, because we'd like to know that the area, that we live in is safe and that, there isn't going to be any problems with, anything happening to the rest of us here in this neighborhood.
In Otsego County, Daniel Zivian, UpNorthLive News.
And Lieutenant Miller says this was most likely an isolated incident and that there is no risk to the public.
A Manistee man was arrested after investigators say he threatened to kill the county sheriff and other officials. State police say they arrested 40-year-old Leonard Sands over the weekend. That's after investigators looked into a series of Facebook messages allegedly sent by Sands threatening to kill the sheriff and hurt other county workers. MSP says they kept the Manistee man under surveillance until they had the evidence to get a warrant, later arresting him during a traffic stop. State police say they seized a sawed-off shotgun with ammo from his home. Sands charged this week with computer crimes and possessing the weapon. His bond was set at $250,000.
Well, chances are you've noticed them on the sides of Michigan highways, a sign that dedicates a stretch of road to a hero who served the community or the country. You may soon see such a sign on one of Northern Michigan's busiest roads, marking a loss almost 4 decades ago.
Micah's son said it's been 38 sad years for all of us.
It's rare that a State House Transportation Committee meeting leads to tears being shed. Rare, but Tuesday morning proved it happens.
Because Jessica's granddaughter sat us ball. So it said that the night you died, I woke up screaming until the phone call came. Then I went silent.
That's Representative John Roth, reading from a memorial page dedicated to State Trooper James Bolin and making the case that the trooper's death in 1987 in Grand Traverse County deserved to be honored.
A lot of people on the memory page have said, you will always be remembered. Now we have a chance to make you were remembered by being part of US 31 in East Bay Township in Grand Traverse County.
While a lot of people are pretty familiar with this stretch of US 31, it's one of the busiest roads in northern Michigan, not as many may be aware of the service and sacrifice of Trooper Bolin.
On July 26, 1987, he was directing traffic in downtown Traverse City at the fireworks in West Bay. Just before midnight, he was struck and killed by a woman who later was convicted of manslaughter, drunk driving.
Trooper Bolin, out of the Owasso post, was here that night because he was one of 250 troopers from around the state called into Traverse City for the 1987 National Governors Conference.
It's really kind of a shame that we, in Traverse City too, kind of forgot about this incident. Now, I know it was a horrific incident, but it should not have taken 40 years for this gentleman to be recognized, and a road naming in our area in his honor really should have happened years ago.
But it didn't. So that's why Representative Roth found himself testifying in front of a State House committee to try and get this stretch of US 31 from 3 Mile to Bunker Hill roads renamed the Trooper James E. Bolin Memorial Highway.
It's just one of the honors that we get to do for one of our fallen heroes in our area.
38 years later, and the service and sacrifice may be one step closer to being honored where it was made. A satisfying moment for a family and for a lawmaker who's trying to make it happen.
It is one more rewarding things that we get to do as legislators. There wasn't too many dry eyes on the Transportation Committee yesterday when we talked about this. So, yeah, both sides of the aisle. This was unanimous in the committee. I'm sure it's going to be probably unanimous on the House floor when it gets there.
Again, the bill passed out of committee yesterday, bipartisan support. It still has to go through the legislative process, but that is anticipated to be a smooth process. The family, a lot of whom live out of state, have told troopers they are thrilled with the honor for their loved one.
Possible health care cuts was a big topic at the Montmorency County Commissioners meeting this morning. The room was packed with county employees and residents. Commissioners proposed making cuts in its county health insurance plan for 11 employees that started working for the county in 2011 or before. They say it was an attempt to help bring down the cost in the county's budget. If enacted, the new policy would remove benefits for spouses and go into effect March 1st. Sheriff Chad Brown says even though his wife's health benefits would be cut, he'd still be paying the same rate of coverage.
Do the right thing and look at all the options, not make a decision now in a rush, in a haste, for no reason, for absolutely no reason. That's the right thing to do. Give it fair consideration. I'm asking you, the board, to make that happen. Push pause, let's do the right thing for everybody, and then let's come back and make a decision that we all understand and prepare for next year.
And if this is about money, and about saving money, then we should know what that savings is. And I believe that was what one of our fellow commissioners had moved for, is let's table it again until we really know what your savings are. So to say you're doing it to save money, but not even knowing what you're saving, it just doesn't sound right.
The Board of Commissioners voted to pause the implementation of the health plan until March of 2026.
Some areas tomorrow dealing with a lot of snow, others not as much. A look at that incoming storm system after the break.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.